Chapter 7. Yeah, man, they say the driver's dead. Samson, age 11. You scared to go over to the cemetery, man? A boy named Crusher taunted Samson. No, man, I ain't scared of no dead people. It's the live ones that can get you. Samson, Crusher, a skinny kid named Razor, and several other boys headed across the street to the graveyard, each one making sure others saw no fear in him. I heard this Reggie dude is pretty cool, Samson said to his brother Andre. Yeah, Andre replied. Reggie's tight. He's the best kung fu teacher in New Jersey. Andre had taken lessons from Reggie for a couple of years, and Samson wanted to see what all the talk was about. I heard Reggie was in a martial arts movie, Crusher volunteered. I'd sure rather live in Hollywood instead of Newark, Razor commented. How'd he end up working as a security guard at a graveyard? That's a pretty boring job, Samson said with a laugh. It's not like the folks he's watching are going to get up and walk away. The group of boys hurried through the cemetery and over to the main building, where memorial services were held. They paused at the huge mahogany doors. How long has he been doing this? Samson whispered to his brother. For a while now, Andre explained. I told you, he's really cool. He says if it's his way of giving back, whatever that means. The door swung open then, and Reggie, tall, broad-shouldered, and powerfully muscled, greeted them with a large smile. Welcome, young brothers, he began. He lined up the boys, then showed them different kung fu moves and how to relax by closing their eyes and breathing deeply. Samson inhaled and listened carefully as Reggie spoke. Calm your mind, he said quietly. Forget about outside problems. Concentrate your thoughts on a positive flow of energy. You going to teach us how to fight? Razor asked. No, Reggie replied. I'm going to teach you how to live. Samson and his friends loved to watch martial arts TV shows and movies. After watching one of those, they all practiced their jumps and kicks and fake karate attacks on each other. He thought maybe Reggie would teach them how to knock down 10 people with one whirling jump and kick like they did on TV. Any fool can fight, Reggie said calmly. It takes a man to know when to use his mind instead of his body. Repeat after me, he said. Toughen my sinews, harden my bones, strengthen my mind. Samson repeated it with feeling. This Reggie dude seemed to have it all together. He was big and strong, and Samson was sure that Reggie could win in any fist fight. But Reggie's strength seemed to come from someplace other than his fists. Every Sunday, Samson and his friends went to the graveyard to listen to Reggie's Newark-style Chinese philosophy and to practice the ancient art of Kung Fu. They learned body stances like the black crane and the praying mantis, as well as body-strengthening techniques. Samson loved it. Consider a single drop of water, Reggie said one day when it was pouring rain. Alone, it is harmless, gentle, and powerless. But everyone respects the power of the sea. You are an ocean. Pull together each drop of your energy to find yourself. No one can destroy the ocean. After the lesson that afternoon, Samson said to Reggie, I know what you're saying, man, but sometimes I feel like I'm under the ocean. You know what I mean? Like I'm drowning and can't get out. Little man, I like your questions. You're a deep thinker, and you ask like a man. The only way to save yourself from the drugs and the temptation and the violence all around you is to find the strength within yourself, Reggie replied. Samson liked the fact that Reggie had given him that nickname. What if I can't find any strength? Samson asked quietly. Reggie told Samson, you have unbelievable intelligence and potential. Instead of letting stuff overpower and drown you, you have to use your brain. to be the ocean. Find others with goals like yours and stick with them. You see what I'm saying, little man? Samson nodded and sighed, but he really had no idea how to fit all this cool sounding kung fu philosophy with dealers who offered him $200 just to run some drugs across town. Getting in trouble was so much easier than pretending to be an ocean. 2 days later, even though he hadn't even meant to do anything wrong, Samson was arrested for shoplifting. It wasn't even his fault. Yo, Samson, want to go into business with me, man? 17-year-old Eddie asked Samson. What kind of business? Samson asked warily. He had known Eddie ever since grammar school and knew that Eddie had been in trouble with the police several times, so he wanted to feel out the situation before giving an answer. It's all legal, man. I'm straight. I'm going to start me a carpet cleaning company. That sounds good, Samson replied. I always wanted to be a professional. Things are pretty tough at home, and I could use a gig. I need workers, men to help me clean up places like office buildings and stuff. I'll pay you good money. How much? Samson asked. I don't know yet, but it will be good, Eddie replied. Samson, always looking for creative ways to make some dollars, thought this would be a good opportunity. It sounded more lucrative than helping people at the local grocery store bag their groceries or carry their bags to their cars for loose change. Any legitimate way that he could earn a little extra money sounded okay to Samson. When do I start? Samson asked. Well, your first job is to help me get the equipment. It's waiting for me at the store. Samson figured his mother and even Reggie would be proud of him for making a wise judgment call. After all, Samson had always considered himself a sharp decision maker. The two boys walked him out of the store, then wandered around inside for a few minutes, looking at the equipment. As they were leaving, Eddie, whose hands were full, said to Samson, Grab that machine for me, man. We're ready to go. Samson walked over to the heavy carpet cleaning machine and slowly pushed it out the front door of the store. It was too heavy to carry, so he pushed it carefully down the sidewalk in full view of people walking and cars driving. Halfway down the block, Samson heard a police siren as a patrol car stopped right next to him. He looked around in genuine surprise as the police officers jumped out of their car and grabbed him. Where did you get that machine, boy? One of the cops asked him. From the store back there, Samson answered honestly. It's for my friend Eddie's new cleaning business. And who is this Eddie? The officer asked. Samson looked down the street. He could just barely see the back of Eddie, running away as fast as he could, about to disappear around a corner. Samson's heart thudded in his chest. How could Eddie play me? He thought. Instead of understanding what had happened, the police officer only saw a boy on the sidewalk with a stolen machine. Samson felt his hands being pulled behind him and the handcuffs being laced to his wrists. He was in total disbelief. The police tossed him in their car, took him to headquarters, and booked him for shoplifting. No matter how he tried to explain his innocence, no one wanted to listen. Being set up was the same as being guilty, it seemed, and no one had much sympathy for him. Sitting in a small cell that smelled vaguely of disinfectant, Samson fumed and planned how he was going to get revenge on Eddie. He knew he would eventually have to call his mother. The police planned to transfer him to the juvenile home the next morning. A police officer approached the cell. Your brother is here to get you, he told Samson as he unlocked the door. Samson looked up in surprise. He wondered how his brother knew that he was in jail. When he got to the front desk, Samson saw not his brother, but Eddie's older brother, Ronald, standing there, pretending to be Samson's family member. Ronald told the police the same story Samson told them earlier. Samson said nothing, afraid the police would figure out who Ronald really was. Finally, they allowed Ronald to sign Sampson out. The police eventually believed Sampson, and the charges were dropped. When Sampson and Ronald got outside, Eddie was hiding on the other side of the precinct building. Sampson ran over to Eddie and with a curse immediately punched him square in his face. The two boys started fighting, falling to the ground, taking turns exchanging licks. Sampson had never been so angry. Ronald broke them up. "Quit it before the police come out here." The boys knew the wisdom of his advice, so they brushed themselves off and walked toward home. Eddie turned to Sampson. "I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to put you out there. I thought we could get away with it and start a business." Sampson, still angry, muttered, "You didn't have to play me like that." He kicked at a rock in the dirt. Eddie continued, "If I truly meant to play you, I never would have gotten my brother to take a chance coming up here to the station. You know he's got a warrant for his arrest in the next town." Sampson retorted, "Yeah, but it was you that got me in this mess." "Yeah, I know," said Eddie, his head hanging low. "Just forget it, man," Sampson said finally. "It's over." He threw his arm around Eddie's shoulder. "At least my moms didn't find out." The next day, all the projects were buzzing with the news that Sampson had been locked up. Many of his friends thought it was cool that he had finally been arrested. "Yo, Sampson, you finally earned your stripes, dog. Now you know what it's like being a prisoner of the man," another said. Sampson joked with them and acted like the whole experience was exciting. "Man, those police didn't have nothing on me. I sat back in that room smiling, telling him to call my lawyer." He never let on how mad he was at Eddie, although he had already decided to forgive him. After all, he had known Eddie all of his life. 2 weeks later, the sound of metal crunching against itself, piercing sirens, and an angry explosion jarred Sampson awake. Confused by the noise and commotion outside, Sampson stumbled out of bed and peeked out his bedroom window. It was 6 a.m. and still dark outside, but the pre-dawn shadows were illuminated by flashing police car lights and the fire that burned from the engine of the 1984 Pontiac that was wrapped around the telephone pole just a few feet from Sampson's door. Police sirens, car chases, and even gunshots were common sounds around Ludlow Street and in the projects. These noises decorated the night, just as the chirping of birds and crickets was commonplace in the country. But this event was right by Sampson's house, and everyone in the neighborhood was stumbling outside to check out the excitement. Sampson grabbed a jacket, stuffed his feet into some sneakers, and hurried out to see the accident up close. The morning air was chilly and smelled faintly of last night's rain. Sampson shivered as he watched firefighters spray the blaze and paramedics attempt to remove the driver from what used to be a car. Police officers seemed to be everywhere. "Anybody know who it is?" Sampson heard a neighbor ask. "Never seen that car around here. Must be stolen," someone replied. "Police was chasing him, and he flew around the corner with them right on his tail," another neighbor reported. "I saw the whole thing." "Anybody get hurt?" Sampson asked. "Yeah, man. They say the driver's dead." Just then, Sampson saw them pull the bloody body of the driver from the car. "That's Lucille's boy," someone screamed. "Oh, my Lord, her boy is dead. Go round the corner and tell his mama to get out here, quick." But Sampson just stood there in stunned disbelief. The driver of the car was Razor Sizemore. His real name was Raymond, but everybody called him Razor because he was so skinny. Razor, who had stopped coming to Reggie's kung fu classes because he had become a runner for the drug dealers. Razor, with a sad smile and desperation in his eyes. Razor, who had sat right next to Sampson in Miss Bellingham's math class just 2 days before. Razor, who died that crispy, cool morning while running from police in a car that he had stolen, had just turned 12 years old. A conversation with Dr. Sampson Davis, living and dying on the streets. I couldn't believe it when Razor died. Even though by age 11 I had seen more than my share of death and dying, Razor was a kid just like me. Actually, his death could easily have been mine. Given the opportunity at that age, I might have been foolish enough to try to steal a car, just for the thrill of the chase. But the streets could easily take a kid's life, whether by drugs or guns or fights or just plain reckless behavior. So much precision, untapped talent, so much precious, untapped talent is lost to the ills of the streets. As for Eddie, we remained tight for several years, but our lives drifted in different directions. As fast as I saw my life progress in a positive direction, Eddie's life fell apart even faster. He became a victim to the drug scene, perhaps because he realized that the streets offered him no love, or perhaps because he could no longer take the frustration of being on the bottom of society with no means of escape. I'm ever thankful that my life turned out differently. People like Reggie, who volunteered his time and knowledge to the kids of the community, who knew the value of giving back, proved to be an important influence on my life at that time. I found myself constantly reaching out to anyone who offered a positive position.